Good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine Sundays. I'm your host, Jamie Rich, and we're delighted to be joining you this Sunday morning on the Breakthrough Show Network. Every Sunday morning, about this time, or sometimes exactly at this time, we gather to have a conversation, a live, unscripted. There is no preparation other than the fact that we bring our lived experience to embody a conversation around a central question. And one of the things that's so exciting about being able to do a live show is that you can actually be a part of it. You have the opportunity to participate in this discussion at whatever level of comfort that you'd like. You can watch us on YouTube, and we'll be able to, if you'd like to, you can put some comments in the chat and we'll bring those comments into the room for the discussion. You can actually, if you want to, join us in this very room that we're assembled in by going to rsslive.org. Or you can just simply watch wherever you are. We're totally okay. We want you to be at your comfort level. This morning's conversation is around the question, which you can see in the room here, which is, what is your personal privacy policy? Last week, our roundtable discussion was around, where is AI taking us? And one of the themes that came out of that discussion was, well, wait a second, what is our own personal privacy policy? How are we using these tools that are available to us on the internet? And as a person of a certain age, my background, I have spent a lot of time in public relations. And one of the things that I always try to tell people is that we used to say, there's nothing off the record, that anything that you are going to be saying publicly may be recorded, may be used against you at a particular time. And, even in the years before social media and the years before, certainly before AI became prevalent, and definitely even in the years before the internet, there was a certain way in which you could have private conversations and public conversations. But as often was the case, there was my mother used to say, don't say anything in public that you wouldn't want your grandmother to know, right? Well, now grandmother knows a lot. Right? Grandmother's probably on the internet quite a bit, and so one of the things that we're talking about this morning, and that we're going to invite your perspectives in too, is what is your policy? What is the way in which you approach engaging in the world right now? And that's what we're here to talk about this morning. And joining me in the round table this morning, we have some special guests. Welcome to you all.
Yes.
Good morning,
Thanks.
Jamie.
Good
Hello,
morning,
hello.
Ray.
Greetings.
And good morning, Sang.
Yes, good morning.
And we have a special guest who's joining us for the first time. Jaloki, welcome to the Rise and Shine Roundtable.
Thank you, Jamie. Good morning, and good morning or good afternoon or evening or night to everyone who's watching and listening.
And that's the great thing about this, is we never know exactly where or what time people are watching, but we are in the eternal now.
And they're watching now.
And they're watching now, and they have questions now. And this is very much a now conversation. And one of the things that we always like to begin with, or I personally like to begin with, is I turn to my dear friend Sang, who gives us some anchoring perspectives about personal privacy policy, because Sang works with a lot of people from around the world, who are using AI, using tools, developing their own way in this world. When we talk about developing your own personal privacy policy, what does that help us out? Put a frame of meaning in this for us, Sang.
So I will say for myself, I grew up in a very sheltered environment growing up. And so we were very private. And it was very fascinating because as I grew up, I realized so many people just freely gave out information. And as I raised my children, and we didn't have the internet back in the day, and my kids didn't have access to social media. So when social media, and I'm using this as a reference point for everybody, when there was, we didn't know what they were, we didn't know what it was, we didn't know how people were going to use it. You already know that there's not so kind people in the world. So now you have digital access to people. So when social media, Facebook, MySpace, all those things came out, I wanted to know what my kids would have access to, who would have access to my children, and really educate people. Because if we remember when social media came out, there were no policies.
Hmm.
People were getting fired left and right. I just heard about somebody a couple weeks ago who got fired from their job because they posted a video on the job on TikTok, right? So
Wow.
those things are still happening in places, right? And so as we move into AI, it's become a tad bit more concerning, I feel like, for a lot of people, because we do come from the age where, again, I see people's resumes and they still put their home address on there.
Hmm.
So having that on there, I even got, people will have checks. People are still writing checks. They have all their information on there. Like, we were so free. Remember, we had to do a thing where you had to do your driver's license, all this stuff on a check. And so we were so freely willing to give information. And I feel like we've done kind of the same thing in this space, where in the digital space, because I've had people put their tax returns in AI. I've had them put their whole resumes. I know Ray and I have talked before about Canada's policies are much more strict than the US, for sure. And even putting just your job history is as a violation of privacy in Canada. So
Well,
really thinking about what that looks like for everyone in their own personal policies. What do you not want to get out into the world?
well, and it's a lot different than the way in which I used to advise people in terms of their local. When there was just, well, you're talking to a reporter, so therefore that was about the only moment that something was public, right? Because,
Right.
unless you knew some friend walking around with a cassette player who was recording your conversations, the likelihood of your information and your private conversations being picked up, used, monetized, aggregated, whatever you want to call it, was
Mhm,
much less at that particular point in time. And as
mhm,
we've discussed many times, right, Ray, the world has changed not because, because of many factors, but there's also so many hands, eyes, ears, and spaces where we're still operating from a really limited perspective on our privacy policy, right? Would you agree
absolutely.
with that, Ray?
Yeah, Sang did a wonderful job sort of setting the context for the conversation and opening it up to what is really happening with privacy. It's changed over time.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, we didn't need to be as protected, and now what the amazing thing is that a whole bunch of parameters have changed. Is
Hmm.
the time factor? I'm always amazed when somebody brings up something. Oh, you did a post 7 years ago. And I'm going, I don't even remember what happened last week. Well, what do you mean 7 years ago? And
what did I say?
so
Right.
it's interesting to see how the process has evolved. And like
Mhm,
you say, is how do you safeguard? And we'll probably loop back to it, but no matter how careful you are, there are leaks in the system.
mhm,
And I'm a little bit naive when it comes to criminal activity, and I'm always amazed at how creative the criminals are. But so yeah, that I think what I would add to it is I've had to continually ask myself, how exposed am I, and
mhm,
what do I really want people to know?
mm,
And I think probably this will loop back to you guys is how much. What do you want them to know about you? Not just data, but your thinking and your beliefs.
Right. Well, and
So
mhm,
again,
toss that
Ray,
back to you.
you're spot on with what you're doing because, oftentimes we just click on all these online agreements, right? Because they're just too overwhelming for us. Like, did you actually read that privacy policy that from the last platform that you checked in on? And we sometimes check out. And
mhm,
then what happens is that we're dealing in fear when someone says, well, so and so got tracked down or so and so got swatted or so and so. So, again, as it is with so many things, it begins with taking that pause and asking the question consciously, what do you want to
mhm.
share? And Jaliki, I invite your comments in on any time. Um, and everything is very free form. So do you have thoughts or initial observations about this particular topic?
Sure. I'm certainly not an expert in privacy policies, and especially as it in regards to digital data, etc. And so my perspective here may come a little from a tangent.
Hmm.
I've my life is I swim in indigenous spiritual metaphysics and multicultural uh, type of thinking and doing and being. And so first, you know, the term personal here really draws my attention because, and you mentioned it, Jamie, you know, we subscribe to all of those things, and it's okay, there's, I don't want my data to to be known. So either we accept theirs or we don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I can actually set up all the privacy to the highest level. It's still not my privacy policy.
Mm-hmm.
It's theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, uh, and again, I'm come from a, bear with me,
It's
okay?
okay.
We're with
Yeah.
you 100%. We're locking in on this. And remember,
Yeah.
we're not experts at this either. This is part of the reason why we do this. We're all guides on the side in this
Well,
particular
great,
conversation.
great. So coming from a spiritual perspective,
Mm-hmm.
from a meta-human, non-human perspective, in my belief and in my experience, uh, we are beings who are exchange. First, by nature, we're energies,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
we relate through energies. And in the cosmos and in the multiverses, uh, all energies are not compatible, or are compatible to a certain degree. And so I need to protect myself and I need to protect others, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that energy is not, you know, can be harmful to me, or my energy can be harmful to them, and it's my responsibility to protect them. And
Mm-hmm.
so the privacy policy goes with a kind of a shield and protection policy, and it's gradual. It's not one for all. It's not. You understand? I have a circle of energies that are closer, that I can share who I am. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe completely the beautiful, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it's fine for me and it's fine for them. And
Yeah.
then there's another circle where it's okay. I have protection, etc., etc. And then there are those who I want to be completely. I don't want to be in their world. I don't want them to know that I exist.
Right. Right.
Well,
So this is
what
my
you're saying
reflection at
so
this point.
what you're saying so beautifully and so eloquently again is recognizing three different dynamics, which is one, that when we talk about the personal, right, we are really talking about being aware of what's happening in our environment, right? And even a lot of people just aren't aware, which is sort of what Sang was picking up on, where it kind of becomes automatic, and then it all becomes fear based, and it's somebody else told you what the rules were, and so you're still trying to figure out what is all about. But what you're inviting us to take a look at is that it's personal, it's adaptive. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, there may be situations in which I can reveal a little bit more. And I pick up on that not necessarily from some written policy, but from some subjective, that I know, well, wait, this is a safe environment, or somebody has said that this is a safe environment. I build that on trust. And then there are those situations where you're very clear that I am in an energetic space where I need to make sure I don't want to live in fear, but I also don't need to share very often. Now, saying you're in a room with three, well, you're in a space right now, in an energetic space with three men and
Mm-hmm.
women, the dynamic that women have to deal with in spaces where there are men, most men are blind to how their way of personal conduct can sometimes be very dissonant, threatening, and outright hostile to women. I mean, am I saying something you haven't really observed in your own life?
I don't know. Fortunate for me, I've had this may sound funky when I say it, but I have somehow found myself in spaces with men and various different fashions in terms of business, religion, politics, things like that. And we're all at the end of the day still human beings. And there's a certain level of, like Jaloki was saying, energy. And I want to say something about what he said, because I heard we were talking earlier. Jaloki, you have something there, because at first you said, if I make a ripple, is it public? Right? So you already had some internal personal policy in place beforehand, right? And so even knowing that, like, who's going to have access, and I think, being in a space, and I think finding a way for myself to be in a room with gentlemen in any form is to be able to just have a conversation with them, and they are human as well, but men are not always looked at as human beings by women, as because they've kind of had a bad name for themselves, I guess. Right? But women have bad names for themselves too. So I'm not pointing fingers at anyone,
No.
right? Because it's more of, there's certain spaces that you can be in where, policies are violated. I mean, we have HR. You can no longer put your hand on a woman's shoulder when you're at the desk. I mean, back when I used to work in the office, men would hug you and they would do this. They would do a full frontal hug, and you're like, whoa, back up. And then it was personal space, and now we have 6 feet social distancing, right? So then that came up. So I think, again, we've been learning how to have boundaries around what we want as well, but also how to incorporate those digital policies in place that can be kind of disarming sometimes.
Right.
Alarming is what I meant, not disarming, but alarming. And we don't know what's out there. And I think I personally like to educate the older generation, simply because they don't have a lot of exposure to digital, and they're the ones that are most susceptible to scams. And I promise you, I have stopped my own daughter, my own son, my children and even older people from having, say, I'll send a message and say, hey, if you see this, don't click it. If you see this, don't click it, just because there is so many things that pull you in and make you think that it's real.
Right.
And it's very challenging to do that.
If you're just now joining us, our topic this Sunday on Rise and Shine Sundays is, what is your personal privacy policy? And if you have some thoughts about what that is for you, you're more than welcome to leave some comments in the chat on YouTube if you're watching us on the Breakthrough Show Network. If you'd like to cross the Rubicon and come into the room with us and join in the conversation, you're more than welcome to do that at RSS Live. But let's get back to the conversation around this, because one of the things that you're inviting us to consider, and maybe this is a good time to add in some more Ray perspective on this. What Seng is talking about is that there's a way of looking at personal privacy as something about safety and protection, and then there's a way of looking at it as if that person's out to get me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. One of those puts you in this idea that I cannot trust, I cannot. But, when we play by common rules, Ray, it makes it easy for everybody to do what they want to do, right? And that's sort of the difference between a safety framework and a fear-based, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate what Sang has just shared, because the connection with privacy and behaviors, what are known or unknown, because you just grew up a certain way, you say, well, that's all right because that's what I've seen, but it's not necessarily what's appropriate now. And what I like about what we've experienced in this space, as well as other spaces we've been in, is JB's been kind enough to post, if you look to the far right of the screen, audience participation policy and discussion guidelines. So that is an invitation to be in a certain space, but outlining behavioral issues, is that voices are to be respected, and listened to, not argued with aggressively necessarily. But I think the behavior aspect is something that I think is a good thing, is to talk about what's acceptable, what's not. And Sang always does a wonderful job bringing in, well, do you really know what that means? What is the meaning when you say a certain word? You can't assume. And Jaloki and I have had this discussion over the last couple of years, is, what did you mean when you said that? What was the intent? Because words mean many, many different things. And until we co-sense or co-share, oh, I meant this. Oh, I didn't think you did. So that's news to me. So I think the the behavioral issue is very important, tied in with privacy, because um, and Yoloki brought it in as well, which I love, is the fact that, okay, if you want to use an app, you don't get to decide. You simply have two choices. If you don't click on those terms, you can't use the app.
Mhm.
So we're already in a disadvantage because they're telling us what they want us to do without asking your permission directly. And I think Sang also said, and Yoloki, who reads that, because it's written by lawyers, and even lawyers don't understand what some of that means.
Well,
Mhm.
so how do we do the safety dance, Jaloki? How do we stay out of being in fear about, all of these spaces? And please, you have free reign to use the metaphysical at any way that you want to, because there are so many people who are using these platforms to seed divisiveness, to seed um, uh, acrimony, to vent things personally. I've often said you're never going to win an argument in the comments section of the internet, but people try that every day,
It's
and we just have all of this like, well, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to just start attacking that person and attacking that person. And we're not resolving anything. We're just participating in some kind of visual drama, right? Which, how do you keep yourself, if you don't mind me saying this, Jalogi, how do you stay above that? How do you stay aware of that? Would you care to speak to that at all?
I can speak about my own
Please.
approach and attempts. I wouldn't say successes. I don't know for others. um whew, Fear.
Mhm.
um Fear is an energy that is on steroid right now in the world, not
Mhm.
just by random. It's being used and financed and sponsored by billions of dollars, because it makes money,
Mhm.
and it makes power. And so for me, my bias is awareness, and you mentioned both in the same sentence, Jamie. Is awareness to the degree that I can. uh, Awareness for me first is to be aware that I'm not aware of everything that you know I want it to be. That's the first approach. And then go slowly, aware of my own fear. Okay, I'm going to do this or not, I'm not going to do this. What is my motive here? Okay, if it's fear, where does it come from? Is there something I need to heal? Is there something, is there a behavior I need to change? Is there something I need to repair with someone? Because, yeah, all kind of things. So awareness, work on myself. I think, okay, you gave me permission, so
I
I'm going.
did.
I'm going there. I'm going
Go
there.
with it. We are here to let it
if,
emerge as it
if
emerges. So go.
if someone shut my microphone, I won't. It's okay. We live right now, the times we're living, I think we have a great challenge with it, which is a great invitation for a great opportunity. By default, we are conditioned and apparently invited to work at a low level, to work from fear, to work from disconnection. Sang your sleep earlier between disalarming and what was it? You use a disalarming instead of no, alarming, or
Disarm the fear.
disarming. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I, I could say a lot about that, but so this is a time. It's very counterintuitive, I think.
Mhm.
For me, I have all these things that are coming at me, and all these things that are demanding things from me, and most of them are not healthy for me or for humanity or for the earth or for the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to take a pause. I want to think, okay, where I am, who I am in this, and how do I respond? Now, two people may respond in the same fashion to a situation, but one is from fear and one is from awareness. It's totally different
Mm-hmm.
because you know, I want to take it back to the personal policy. Um, Again, social media now with AI, big companies that are making billions. So, okay, parenthesis. Companies appear to sell a product, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like Facebook or X or TikTok, and so the product is either communication on text, a certain number of character, or videos, or whatever information. No, the product is you.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And since if I can interrupt,
Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, if I can interrupt for just a second, that's the other thing that, your privacy policy is also a product there as well. So in other words, it's almost as if X has now become a platform where the given interaction is how uh, mean and knocking people down. In other words, it's like the rules of the road in so many spaces right now are all about attack, assault, what's the provoke, and again, what you're inviting us to consider, Jaloki, is not, again, these policies are out there that are designed to protect the corporation from any harm, but it's only until you go into your own personal privacy policy that you focus on how you can protect yourself from harm. And am I going to be engaging in activities that are harmful for myself or others? I know there's a lot that must be pouring out of you saying in response to what Jaloki just said, so I don't want to impede on that. So go with it.
No, I think it's great. I love it because I think one of the things fear's never going to go away, right? Fear's just now coming in a different form, right? Fear's always been it's always going to be around. It's how you decide to respond to it, right? And I know for myself, being willing to help others is an antidote to fear, right?
Mm.
Because you're engaging, you're educating, you're showing them. And I think the other on the flip side of that right now, though, is there's that thing that our human body does where if someone's helping, they must want something, right? Where I'm just teaching. And then it's about building that rapport and that trust with someone to say, I want you to know because I don't want anything to happen to you. And it has to come from that energy, like what Jaloki's talking about, because there's an energy there that you can sense a difference when someone's trying to do something. Sometimes it's malicious, and then it becomes confusing if something has happened to you where someone has done that. So your level of trust is much different. And I think a lot of our powers come into, and I talk about this a lot, is how we choose to let our environments and experience shape us into what we have. And I know for myself, my children were not on social media for such a long time because I told them there are so many things you guys do not know yet. You don't need to be on here as teenagers. You don't need to be on here doing all this stuff. They saw the things I showed them things that people did. I showed them things that their friends were doing, and so I do love the fact that my kids are in their 20s and they're very cautious about what they post and what they don't post. And they found a way to use the platform however that works for them and makes it work for them in that aspect. So, but I do truly believe that educating and really being willing to help others understand is definitely the antidote to fear in this capacity.
Well, and I love that. So let's bring it down then to this level of the personal. We've talked about the abstractions and the concepts between why everything is a personal privacy policy, right? But then how do you walk in the world right now?
Mhm.
That is the real question. When you're constantly clicking on these things where you're accepting it, I think it begins, as we've often said, with that pause of awareness and recognizing, wait, what is my level of control within this particular space? What is my choice, right? How do I want to conduct myself? And when you're
Mhm.
in this fear-based automatic behavior, oh, I've got to go post something. I've got to, well, somebody's having an argument on the internet about politics. My opinion must be interjected right now because I'm going to change the world with my perspectives. Maybe not. Maybe
Right.
not. Your what is your role? What are those questions? And those of you who may be watching this on YouTube as we're talking today about what is your personal privacy policy, if you've got some tips and strategies as to how you conduct yourself differently these days, is one of them just simply avoiding getting into, I mean, how how much of a comment do you want to leave in social media? I mean, I show up on social media because I want to be able to wish some people a happy birthday, and maybe toss in a thought or two about some observation. But I've also learned there is nothing to be gained by having a conversation in the comment section of the internet. That's just been one of my philosophies that I carry forward. Does anybody have any practical strategies that they've applied? Ray, do you have one or two for yourself?
Well, I've been sort of observing from a distance as I don't really use social media. I belong to a few of them, but I've sort of pulled back. And what I've heard, and thanks to Sang and others, and you, Jamie, is what I started to observe is the recommendations that are coming from
Mhm.
outside saying, even if you pull back a bit and reduce the amount of exposure or participation you have, there's an almost immediate positive effect because the level of distraction, attention is you're not doing 18 hours a day for one thing, as well as what Sang had mentioned is it allows you this extra time for that pause
Mhm.
to build what you mentioned so beautifully is rapport and trust.
Correct.
And I think that's so important is that, and what you mentioned, Jamie and Yoloki, is the where do I spend my time with people? What's the
Mhm.
appropriate space? What's the most valuable and impactful space? On a personal level, but also on a so if you move away from one area, it gives you the freedom, the choice to find another area, such as what we're doing here. Is I invite people in for discussions, and they go, "Wow, there's not much of that happening. I love it."
Mhm.
So I think that's the gift that you mentioned is that by helping others and Yoloki as well is finding that compatible energy or the sharing of energy. And Jamie and I have sort of coined a term that the value exchange. We're having a value exchange in this moment because Sang is sharing her lived experience, and so is Yoloki and Jamie. So I benefit from that is
Mhm.
because I get to hear other things that make me feel calm, that allow me to connect in with others. So I'll pass that
Yeah, no, no,
back.
no.
But
What you've introduced is the reversal, is being able to
Mhm.
say, for you, it's like recognizing that social media is not the environment that you want to engage in. So, what
that's
is
right.
my personal preference? Then, what can I create that is an environment of my personal preference? And
Mhm.
again, Joloki, that may be something that people are just so unaware of how much they're giving their power away. I mean, do you find that to be true? They're
So- Whew. Yes, 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 and I include myself in that. Although
Mhm.
it's my intention to be more and more aware of it, I wanna introduce here something. Uh, 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 um, I think it's part of the conversation. You know, okay, personal, but at the same time, it's not necessarily that easy for everyone for several reasons. First, there's a whole domain that Sang brought, which is children, and
Mhm.
that's the whole thing because children are their mind that are still not completely formed, and there's danger there. There's danger, and actually businesses use those vulnerabilities and loopholes, and so there's a lot to be done there. Yeah.
Yes.
And then even for adults, okay, I want to recognize, we're talking here. I feel that all the four of us, we kind of have done some work. We're aware, we're healthy, so we feel kind of yeah,
Yeah.
free. We make decision for ourselves. Again, social media and the digital world is tapping into the addiction function of our brain, and
Mhm.
an addiction is often something that cannot be addressed individually. It's
Mhm.
too powerful, okay? And so if I'm becoming addicted to those things, and clicking, I can't spend 30 minutes without being online. I may not be able to solve that problem by myself. I need help. So
No, and yeah, saying add in go. I can see.
Well, I can always help you with that because I have a class about social media. But one thing I want to talk about too, going back to privacy policies, and Jamie, you mentioned reversing, is not only this fear, tap into our personal policies of what what information we want to give people. How many times do you go to a new place, and they're like, download our app and you get $5 off, right? So now they're getting you in because from the other side of save money,
Yeah.
get points, do this, right? Because when I look and I'm like, I'm not downloading another app. I'm good. Right. I went through my app happy crazy phase where I downloaded apps, and I'm just done downloading apps. Right. And so thinking about that, because then we weren't thinking, because we were like, oh, gotta save $5.
Well,
Well,
and
I get
that's
free guacamole.
and what you're talking about is the way in which you don't realize that your addiction is actually, when somebody says, yeah, I mean, I used to say to people, I loved buying domain names. That was my particular addiction, right? Because I was like, oh, I can save that for later, and it's so cheap. And but what you don't realize, which is again what Jaloki is asking us to recognize, is so much of those approaches are feeding the addictive part of your reptilian sort of brain, if you will, that dopamine factor that you're going to, the
yes.
FOMO, right? The fear of missing out, all of those things. And we think that we are actually creating a policy. We actually think that we're creating a conduct of behavior. We actually think that we're creating a way in which we choose to show up, but really we're being drawn in and invited, right? We're that privacy policy, or maybe I should use a better word, that conduct, the way in which we conduct ourselves in these, we think that that's of our own choosing. And that was what I was sort of trying to say is that, is there a reason for you to go to X and comment? It seems like the only reason is to be snarky, to be hurtful, to be,
Yeah.
to condemn, to feel better about yourself, and to stay in that loop. You know what I mean? It's just,
Mhm.
it's really, really hard to pull yourself back to find that personal space, going back to that origin, like, oh, wait a second. How did I get here? How did I,
Right.
how did I find myself in all of this?
Mhm.
And the power of that breath, which again, I mean, I talk about with sometimes if I get so overwhelmed online, if I get so overwhelmed in situations, I need to put my body back in charge, you
Mhm.
know? And that begins by sort of like, I literally look around in my environment where I am not. Is anyone else relating to what I'm saying in terms of recognizing how much of what you think is your mode of behavior is
Mhm.
actually what, sort of like what Jaloki was asking or explaining to us earlier? It's a conditioned response that you think is
Yes,
your own.
yes, yes. And to that, if I may, I don't know if it's in the Art of War of Sun Tzu. I read that book, but what I'm going to say may not be in there. But one of the tactics of war is to use the weapon of the enemy. Martial arts. And so I'm again myself. Okay, the enemy, in a sense, is trying to trick my brain to do things that is for them and not for me. Okay, and they're very good at that. They've done a lot of research. They've done a lot of power. So I have to find a way so I can respond. So, well, I'm gonna trick myself too. against it. I have tricks that I use for myself, placebo type of things. And for example, okay, download the app and you save $5. The trick for me, and I know in economic terms it's not exactly accurate, but it works for me. If the app is $95, and if I download it, I save I save $5. I'm not saving $5. I'm wasting $90.
Yes.
Okay, so every time I see that, it's okay. Reverse it. You're not saving. You're actually wasting, and it's going to them. If you dig into that reasoning, it's not exactly accurate, but it works for me.
I
Myself.
love.
Okay.
And there's more. I don't want to cut you off. Keep
No,
going.
no, go ahead. No, go
Well,
ahead.
because a very powerful question you can ask yourself is, what is this? What does this cost me?
Yeah.
What does this engaging on X and getting into I think I'm going to prove a point, but what does it really cost me? Right? I'm going to download that app. I'm going to save $5, but what does it really cost me? Oh man, I'm going to be bothered by those messages. Do I even need to buy? Do I need to buy? You know what I mean? And so that wonderful question that you just are inviting people to ask, which is, what will this eventually cost me? Right? Bringing it to human terms. Ray, you're nodding.
Yeah, it's there again, establishing a broader context is that it's not the $5. It's the $5 is one piece of it. It's the long-term consequence, as well as what are they doing to me, as opposed to what I want to achieve in my life. And that's the fun part of it is when Sang was sharing and Yuloki, I was thinking, you know what? It's all about luring and manipulation.
Right.
So to actually develop an awareness and maybe the observational skill. What are they trying to do here? Why is it $5 off? And what do they want me to do? They want me to click. They want me to buy. And my wife is really good at when they offer these channels on television for sign up for 3 months. She used to work at a bank, and she says, you know what happens after 3 months? You forget that they're going to start charging you, and you're not going to look for the charge. See, she always advised people, do you really want to do that?
Right.
It's really not 3 months free. It's that part is free, and then we'll get you.
Right.
So they've got you. They've
and
trapped you.
You're talking about that consciousness checkout, which is that you're not really aware of what you're agreeing to.
Exactly.
And even though you may not read that privacy policy that somebody else is putting out there, you can still ask yourself the question of, why am I participating here in the first place? I'll go on to this particular platform, but wait, why did I want to come here in the very beginning, right? What do I choose? All of those awareness-based questions get conditioned out of you because you're going to get $5, or you're going to get you're going to meet friends, and what is it with all the dating apps, right? You're going to stay hooking into that because Mr. Wonderful or Ms. Wonderful or they wonderful is just around the corner, right? And it's okay to stay in those spaces as long as you understand your terms for being there. What is my term for being there? And yeah, Sang, please.
Well, I'm gonna share something. A lot of everybody who ever hears me talk about my dad, I don't really have a lot of great things to say, but I will say that there's one moment when we were we were at the funeral home doing my mom's paperwork, and I was reading everything. Right, my mom always taught me to read every single thing, like read it. Now, trust me, I don't read all the terms and conditions, so don't get me wrong, I don't. But I was reading every single thing because this was affecting my entire family, right? This was like what was happening. And so I'm reading and I'm like, wait a minute, this and this, this. And I was asking the funeral director questions. And I remember my dad saying to me, that was really good that you looked at every single line. I really appreciate that. And it made me, and people know that I'm a documentation over conversation girl all the time. So I also know to document things that are important because of that. so that's my own personal policy. And I love how Jaloki was talking about the art of war, because the art of war focuses on your greatest victory is not fighting, it's without
Yeah.
fighting, right?
Yeah.
It's planning, it's the strategy, it's really like using your mind. What's the adaptability? How do I make this environment work for me? And it's the and not in the manipulative way, but it's the psychological advantage that you have. And we're not conditioned that way. We're not conditioned to do it that way. We're conditioned to automatically fight, argue, blame, be angry, without going deeper into what everything else is. And so, and even here, when we talk about this, we could be creating fear within people. And so the other side of that is, which is what I talk about a lot, is again, social media, anything that we do, social media specifically, when I teach about it, average adult, our ages probably 2.5 hours, that's 17.5 hours a week scrolling whatever you're doing on social media. That what could you have been doing with that time? So
Yeah.
then you focus on the people who value time.
Right. Right.
Right? And so it's just finding that in with people, but also creating, again, that rapport and safety, that I'm teaching you something and I'm showing you how to be aware of something that you may have forgotten for
Right.
yourself.
Well, taking that time back, you don't necessarily have to read everything in a privacy contract when you do it. But again, if we
Mhm.
go back to this idea of remembering your intent for being that here, why did I choose to get on Blue Sky? Why did I choose to come to Rise and Shine Sundays this particular day? It's because when you're conscious of what your motives are as to how you got roped into it, do you understand what I mean by the difference with that? Is,
Mhm.
because then you're setting everything up that you think is yours, and you're really just following um, somebody else's thoughts about things, right?
Mhm.
This is a very complex, topic, if you will. But one of the things I really appreciated what we're able to do here is that, again, Joloki, just like we said at the beginning, we are not experts in any of the fields that but we have the right to participate in a discussion about it. Um,
Mhm.
and we're just very, very grateful that, part of that is using your conscious awareness in a way that is not necessarily talked about or celebrated much these days, right? I mean,
Mhm.
hey, Jolky, could you just go along, please? Don't make waves. Just click here, sign this, do that. I mean, do you ever feel like, like somehow you're being the wait a second, no, huh? Do you ever feel like you're sometimes the holdout in one of those spaces or in places these days? Like you're the
Yeah,
only
absolutely.
one?
Well, yeah. Again, I think I'm going to enter this from a tangent. It seems to be that
I love
mode
it.
for me today. You know, being aware and intentional. A lot of what we've talked about so far is putting off and not engaging. But there is also, it's not just that. There is also the intentionality of, yes, I'm going to engage, but on my own term, according to my own personal policy. For example, AI. That's great now. You have this 50 pages legal lingo of terms, etc., that you're not going to read, and if you read it, you're not going to understand it. You can ask AI, okay, summarize this. Tell me if there are things that I need to pay attention, and give me advice. Okay, and AI gives you a few bullet points, and very often, I mean, it's right on point. That's an intentional engagement. Uh, uh, um,
I love that
I'll
phrase.
let you
Keep
continue.
going. Intentional engagement. It's a wonderful difference between what people want to do. How does that keep us informed with intentional engagement?
What do you mean?
Well, in other
Can you
words,
elaborate?
continue. What else would you want to say
Oh,
about
oh,
it?
okay. Yeah. Because it again, it's again. It, I mean, fear. I think it's a lot. It's at the center of this. We're in a okay, okay. Some inspiration. I actually believe that social media, when we start really engaging it from a perspective of authenticity, because right now there's a lot fake. People have two lives. You have your digital life and you have your IRL life, and it's, you're not the same person. Okay. And so there's a lot of, like, which is one of the reason there's more danger in having people being, things being exposed about me, because then the world will realize that I'm not who I say I am. As we become, for some who choose that, because maybe not everyone will choose that, more authentic, more vulnerable, and actually sometimes intentionally accept that, okay, I'm going to be exposed, a little exposed here, and there are things in me that don't feel very comfortable uh, being known by other people, but this is me. This is me. You take it, or you leave it. This is me. And tomorrow I may be a little different. I may be a little better, I may be worse. I believe that people who engage in that, and so because social media actually enters in our private lives, we may get to know each other better, which is not really happening right now, to the point, and people are going to uh, react to that, where I think in the future, several generation, we may actually remember and redevelop that we're telepathic beings. We don't need social media. We don't need computers to communicate. We can communicate from mind to mind, from heart to heart, from soul to soul. But this is being atrophied right now. But I think that there's an opportunity in the interconnectedness that technology is offering to us. There's an opportunity for us to redevelop that.
Yeah.
So people will
Well,
make
no.
what they want.
And as Sang knows, because she checked in on it as well, there's a comment about what you're talking about, Jaloki, in the chat in YouTube, and we don't know sometimes which is which is ourself anymore, right? So we create distrust before we have even the opportunity to earn it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
We have sort of lost that sense of self sometimes because we don't get that opportunity to really say, well, who. I hate to use the term "who am I," but you understand where we're going with this thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it comes down to, again, who are you, right? Like I feel like I'm in Alice in Wonderland with the little dude that's puffing his little thing, whatever he's puffing. Okay, it says, "Who are you?" or something like that, right? Because knowing yourself first, right, allows you to understand and see who other people are through observation and the pausing, right? And I think one of the biggest things to take away is, I know for myself, and my less than 108 years old, is I have learned that I don't need to be the person who's dominating or chasing or proving myself or forcing things. I'm just being. And when I'm just being, I automatically become a threat to others, and I don't know that,
Right.
right? But that's their experience of me just being a chill chick.
And so there is the mic drop for this particular gathering, which is um, what is your personal privacy policy?
Yeah.
It is what you choose to be.
Mhm.
What allows you to be you in these situations as authentically. I'll use your term, Jaloki, as well. Dare to show up authentically in the world right now, right? And create a personal privacy policy that allows you to do that to the fullest ability of your abilities. And to borrow in from what Ray was saying earlier, we can then create relationships. We can participate in this reciprocal value experience. I mean, every Sunday when I come here to Rise and Shine Sundays, I receive something because I really want to make sure I can hear the authenticity in terms of what Sang is saying and what Ray is saying, and in what you're offering, Jaloki, to us this morning as well. And so the sharing comes from that spirit of authenticity. And so, you want to protect that. And so you can be, your personal privacy policy can be who you are today. You may need to dial it back a little bit more tomorrow because, I'm not feeling 100% vulnerable. There may be other days when I'm feeling really yang and expressive, and hey, I'm just going to, free will with it. But it's how I choose to be in the world, right? Thoughts as we're wrapping up this hour together.
Well,
Sang.
I think a good thing. So Jessica put a comment in the YouTube, right? It says in the YouTube. Did I just say that? Oh dear. Anyway, it's interesting because if I know myself and operate by being, then it doesn't matter what those outside of us do. That's serious power that they try to keep us from accessing. And I love that because I've been living in a space where I have allowed others to direct my future because I didn't trust my own power. I didn't trust my own way of being. I didn't trust my own thoughts and processes because I was constantly being told what I should do, what I should be, to the point where I now, which I, again, even with my children, I came from a place of educating. I wanted to have a conversation. I wanted to teach. I wanted to show, because when you know more, you're equipped with knowledge and wisdom to make different decisions, and decisions that fit your life or your family or whatever's important for you. So I think
And I love what
that's
you just said, because I love what you just said. We love Jessica, of course. We love being on the Breakthrough Show Network every Sunday morning to have this conversation. And we talk about waking up to what's emerging. And to continue this conversation, Sang just invited us. Sometimes what we often find is that from one conversation, something emerges for the next conversation. And I guarantee you that if you join us next Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time, we're going to be discussing learning how to trust your own power.
can't wait.
Because that is exactly what emerged from this conversation today. And I, like I said, I love that it sprung from a comment in the chat. It flowed through you. It was here because we held it. And I think that is something that people do not have enough conversations about, right? Which is, wait a second, let's learn how to trust our own power. So come back next week. That's what we're going to be talking about. Any final comments from my dear friend Ray? Anything for this morning?
Oh, just connecting back to what Sang and Yoloki and all said. It's all about, once you know more about yourself, and what Sang specifically said resonated with me, is it's the sharing of the authentic you that creates value and a relationship with that. So that's by everyone sharing. So connecting, sharing, and being authentic.
Yeah.
And Jaloki, it's been a joy having your energy with us this morning. Were there any additional perspectives that you'd like to toss in?
Just a quick message to young people who may be reacting, say, okay, who I am, what's my nature, I don't really know yet. That's fine. That's fine. It takes time, it takes experience, it takes lives, it takes years. And maybe you may want to make this your quest in life to, who am I? And it may be your direction in life if you choose so.
And again, thanks to Sang, we have a topic for next week. We have an invitation for you to join us as we learn how to trust our personal power. We will be back here next Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time on the Breakthrough Show Network. We really appreciate you being with us and sticking with us. Our thanks to Jessica and everyone at the Breakthrough Show Network. If you've been watching this particular broadcast, please subscribe to the Breakthrough Show Network. There are some wonderful things out there, and we will be back here next week to have the conversation with you. Thanks again for being here, and we'll see you next Sunday for Rise and